but it's a small room. I probably don't need them. So good. Thank you very much indeed for coming along, everybody. I'll still wait a little while. We'll see how we go. And yeah, that's good. Great. So I expect a lot of you working from home today. I work from home every day, so it's not a big deal for me. But it's definitely a very strange situation to be in. It's everybody around the world doing this. I don't think we'll ever actually do things the same ever again after this, but we'll see how we go. So what I'm going to do now is just, I'll start to share my screen and we'll get on with it. Please do add comments in the chat section. That would be great. And if you're watching this at another time, then also please send through any questions, any comments afterwards. I love to hear what people are thinking, any questions they've got, any sort of engagement is always positive. So, and I'll always reply. So, do put forward your thoughts whenever you're watching this. That'd be great. Cool. So I'll start to share my screen now. Which, hang on a second, let me just put this to the beginning of here. Doesn't want me to do that, so I'll do it this way. If it's going to be difficult, I shall do it this way. Don't mind. Cool. So, good. Right, so this is you're in the right place if you've come for a webinar that's about positioning your team for greater progress and delivering greater value. That's what we're going to be talking about today, and why it's important for us to do so, and what are the benefits and what are the challenges. So that's where we're going with this. So let's crack on. Just make sure I've got the chat at the side there. That's great, so I can see your comments. Lovely. Right, so it's interesting in itself. Oh, I put some music in. Let's not do that anymore. Right, I want to start with this. This is a picture of Pitmans Secretarial College. I can't imagine for a second that it still exists as such. I'm sure the building still exists. It's in Russell Square in London. My dad insisted that I do a secretarial course before I went and did anything else. And that was because he was of the opinion, he said to me, Sarah, if you can type, then you will never be short of work, and you'll always be able to marry the man that you love and not marry for money. He came from a very poor family, and some of his sisters were not able to make good choices in marriage, and were definitely not able to have much education. Some of them hardly were able to write. Well, they were brought up in the Spanish Civil War. But anyway, probably more important than that. I'm showing you wonder why the hell I'm showing you this. I'm showing you this because I want to tell you, we want to talk about how things change and how we have to change with them. And so, yes, my dad had a great idea that typing would be a skill that everyone would always need. But of course, despite his good intentions, he was wrong. I still type very fast, but never managed the shorthand particularly. Let's have a look at these things too. So the old video cassette, we thought that was it. Definitely not now. In market research, people went and did the surveys on the street. We don't do that anymore. Haven't done that for decades. So that changed, and obviously wouldn't be quite so happy doing that now. No one's going to stop on the street for you these days. The good old typing pool. This is, people can hardly believe this ever existed, but yes, people, particularly men, would sit in closed offices, smoking and drinking tea, and writing out scrawl for typists in a typing pool to then type out neatly and send back to them on a manual typewriter. So obviously things have changed a lot. And there was a time when you can advertise that Guinness was for strength. Clearly you can't do that anymore. So things change. And I want to present you with some challenging statistics, perhaps, which could perhaps help you think about the role that your team and you have within the business. So the first one I want to present you with is that 58% of in-house counsel said that their actual legal role was as a service provider, but 85% said their ideal role would be a strategic partner. So we have a change. We have something that they think they are and something that they'd like to be, or something that you think you are, something that you'd like to be. Second one is that 79% of corporate directors in a study from New York Stock Exchange said that the best use of legal would be acting as an advisor to the board. And only 37% said risk analysis expert. But there's an awful lot of departments that are still acting principally as a risk analysis expert. Of course, risk is always going to be a huge part of the law within business, but they really are saying, please step up. But it's not necessarily happening. And even worse than that possibly is a McKinsey study amongst general counsel saying that they were suspected they were seen as a necessary evil and people would rather do without them at all if possible. So this is not really a position where you're being welcomed onto the board, into the boardroom, and to be able to affect very strong strategic roles in business. And there's a thing here, we really need to think about how our team is regarded by stakeholders and by the business, and what are the challenges. I think that's really significant. What I've found in my work is that there is a difference between how people regard themselves and how they think that others perceive them. And really, I think, sadly, the truth is in the perception. It is in every aspect that the perception is truth. So if the board or the rest of the business does not see the department as strategic advisors, then the truth, you guys deal in truth of the matter, is that you probably aren't, because that's not the way you're being treated, that's not the information, the access that you're being given, that's not the credibility and credence and use that your advice is being put to. So really quite important to think about how other people regard you, because that's how other people are currently using you. And there must be something about the way that we present ourselves, the way that we talk, what we deal in, what our currency is, that tells others who we are and how we should be used. So this is what positioning and purpose really is about. It's about thinking about, what should I be doing, and am I acting, and am I completely consistent in the way that I act that delivers against that particular purpose and positioning, so that I'm convincing in that area. In addition to this, we've got 90% of companies that are redesigning their organizations to be more dynamic and team-centric and connected, but not just required in new operating models, but a different type of leadership to mobilize and execute the model. So we are being required to change, even though we want to step up anyway, we actually are required to change because the businesses are changing. So if your industry or company is altering course or altering emphasis even, or working in a different commercial context, it's a good reason to suppose that you will need to change your support in the same way. So change begets change. That's not quite right, but change creates change and requires change to keep up with it. So we have to do that anyway, irrespective of the fact that you'd like to become more advisory anyway. So this is an additional compound challenge. So the question is, have you consciously changed your department in the last, say, 5 years? And if so, if you've changed that role, if so, how have you done it? I'd just like to see if you want to put any comments in the chat box. If you do, then that would be great. They do take a little while to come through. I'll carry on talking, but it would be great if you think that you have changed your department's role, or your role, the department has changed its role within the last 5 years. It would be very interesting to read anybody's experience in the chat box now. I know some of you are a little hesitant, but don't be shy, that's what I'm saying. Cool. So I'll see if someone comes up. All right. quite sure why it stopped. Hello, there you go. Right, let's go back a bit. We do that. Sorry, something must have happened with the connection at some point. Okay. So thinking about your job and function and the industry, think about when you're thinking about change, how it's affecting you and how you want it to change. Think about what it does, who it does it for, and how it does it. What changes have there been in the industry in the last 15 years? I'm sure you can answer me that very clearly. Any comments on what you've observed? I've got some answers, but I'm sure you've got some that have actually been about you. What changes have there been in your industry in the last 15 years? So if you want to type that in the chat box, that would be great. And what about what changes there have been in your company in the last 15 years or in your function in the last 15 years? There's been a lot of changes in legal. Let's see if anyone's prepared to put them forward. Oh, you're so shy. Don't be shy. Anyway, so I'll tell you what people have told me. And that is that, sure, they've always been in whatever industry your company is in. There have been changes in the last 15 years without any doubt, and in your company for sure too. But the changes in the function have been pretty much this requirement to move up, and the increasing use of technology and possibly outsourcing to be able to get other things done. I think it's inevitable. In fact, there's a McKinsey study that outlines this, that jobs at the bottom end of legal, in-house legal, are going, and the ones at the top are increasing. So it's a very exciting position to be in, but it is very challenging. It means you have to step up. So being required to be more on board is very important. And I know some CEOs are saying, it's time to get off the fence. Legal departments, it's time to take a stand. It's time to come up with business strategic advice, not just to be able to come back with a point of view, but actually some actual strategic direction and solutions, commercial solutions. I mean, it's not. It means that basically legal is not the only area of expertise that is required to perform at a higher level. And that is what the business is requiring. One GC said to me, so if I can get this right, she said that her CEO wanted to know that the heart of the legal department was beating in the same way as the heart of the business, so that basically that they were in sync, that it was about providing competitive advantage. And that's what she was saying. So it's about that sort of thing. So positioning, that's this idea of being positioned as slightly outside that some in-house legal teams have. I'm not in terms of commercially outside, but intellectually outside, in order to maintain this objective mindset. For sure, the law is always going to require an objective mindset, but then to be able to interpret that in favor of the business is really what is happening. And while a lot of people are taking that on board, some people are finding that quite difficult to get through their departments. In fact, some people saying, actually, the most difficult thing about this is actually some of the senior people in my department who don't think that they need to change and want to do their quite siloed job and not move outside of that, and not think outside of that, not expand their skills outside of that, or their relationships outside of that. So there is some pushback, which I know some GCs are having difficulty with their teams, as they've shared with me. We, of course, got some solutions for those as well, but let's move on. Cool. In order to be effective, I think one of the things that I'd like to tell sort of all of the super clever people in business, of course, legal people are super clever people. And what I wanted to tell, to share with them, is that being clever is not enough, and that actually information is not enough, and also judgment even is not enough. We actually need to create action. There is no point in any information or knowledge or wisdom existing within the business if it doesn't create profitable action at the end of the day. And so it's our job, all of ours. The only way we can add value is by creating action. Now, maybe we are not the people who do the action in the end, and that's the case for probably most of the people in a business. But it's our job to influence action, and that's how we deliver value. If what we have is a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, but it's not making a difference at the pointy end, then we're not adding the value that we think we are, however clever we are. So really very important to be able to influence and to be effective. And of course, how you're positioned within an organization, what you think your purpose is and how you deliver against that is really going to be key for that. So let's have a look and see where your team is on the impact ladder. If you've done any work with me before or attended any of my talks, for example, you may recognize some of the elements of this. I update it from time to time. But I'd like you to have a think about where your team is on the impact ladder. So are they, for example, level 1? Hopefully not. Where not very influential. Basically, it's an informer role. You're providing information when requested. You carry out the task, perhaps with insufficient context. You don't get a lot of room to do great work at the bottom of this ladder. So if you're positioned as a kind of informer, then you tend to be overworked, under-resourced, etc. To be honest, that seems to be the case with most of the legal departments. Level 2 is your knowledgeable resource. So by now everybody knows, you've got a lot of knowledge that you can share. And of course, that does have some influence. You're providing that knowledge, you've got generally good practices, but your role is still very siloed and you haven't got much control over the work that you do. You're still very task, not purpose focused. Level 3, things start to get quite a bit better and you're an advisor by now. You're fairly influential, providing advice to senior strategists, etc. But you're still only talking law, and that's you're not really combining it yet with business strategy. You're still doing satisfying work by this stage, and you're doing professional development, etc. But the real goodies lie at the top of the ladder, of course. Here you're a strategic business leader and your team is a team of strategic business leaders. Now, I have to say, I completely understand that if you have a team, that you have some who are more junior, who are doing more basic tasks, and some who are more senior, who you would expect him to step up to this. But I suppose what I'm saying is, do you think the way that the business thinks of you is, you guys, particularly the senior ones, is that you really are playing this strategic role in the business, which means you're always invited to the decision-making table. You lead the commercial discussions at this senior level, and you are on a project from the start, so you can do your best work, or from whenever you think you should be on. Of course, loads of benefits here: autonomy in working practices, your mastery increases, there's a sense of purpose and motivation in the team, etc. So all very good, increased budgets, etc. So this is a very good place to be. And what I want to do, I don't know how many of you are sitting, I suspect that some of you are doing other things while this is on, which is fine, I've done that too. But if you are around, I just wondered if you want to complete this poll that I have. So this is, where do you think you are on this, on the level, or your team is at this level? Maybe it's just you anyway, in which case it's where are you? But where your team is on this impact ladder, you're going to be able to vote. So if I've done this right, which I hope I have, and yep, here we go. So what I've got here is the team impact poll. Where is your team on the influence ladder? Level 4 is at the top, level 1 at the bottom. So take a look at these 4 levels, and that will enable you to answer on the poll. So I'm just going to launch a poll now. Let's see what we do. And I understand if none of you are doing that, because you're all off, I don't know, making casseroles, perhaps. I don't know what you're doing, but maybe whatever you're doing. So you're now viewing the questions. If you can do that, that's all good. Oh, you're all making great casseroles to share with neighbours. Well, look, that's lovely. Okay, once again, very shy, all good. All right, not a problem. I'll end the poll, that's good. It's very strange times. We usually get a lot of numbers come up on the polls, but You're obviously all, I don't know, finding new places to store your toilet paper, something. Anyway, I'm going to end the poll, no problem. We'll just move on. Good. Right, so let's have a look at positioning, which is why you joined up. So positioning, in terms of positioning, is important because it helps to become more influential. And when you're more influential, you're more effective and you're delivering better value. And that's really what it is. I've got a driver, a model of 4 drivers of influence, and positioning is number 1. Because it's, you know, who are you? What are you there for in the first place? And how does the business see you? Is that tied together? So that's all, you know, excellent. And the next one, I'll just go round, we'll go back to the positioning. The next one is solutions. Are you able to deliver commercial solutions? How good are you at doing that? How good are you at phrasing them? Can you talk the right language? Can you make a point effectively in terms of that solution? Can you build it in a way that is, relevant and people will listen? Relevance is a benefit that comes out of being appropriately positioned and having appropriate solutions. Relationships is another one. There is so much evidence these days that relationships, those soft skills, are actually at least as important as all of that fabulous legal knowledge that you have and the specialist knowledge that others have. It's the relationships, it's the soft skills that get things done. And this is why quite a few of the, you know, the big management consultancies are now recruiting people and taking an awful lot of notice of whether or not they can collaborate. Because if they can't work effectively together and flexibly together and in a way that motivates each other, then you know, they basically don't get the opportunities. You know, if you're around someone all the time, well, not all the time, but if you're around somebody and you're helping them and you're empowering them, then you're going to be the one that gets the opportunity to do things, and you're going to be trusted with more impactful work, which is great. So the solutions for that, so that you obviously get trust. Next one is communication, being able to communicate clearly. One of the challenges for legal is they tend to use legalese, and the rest of the business can sometimes just start to shut that out. So there's a way of communicating that is impactful and more effective than how legal quite often communicates, which would allow it to have greater access to opportunities than it currently does and be more effective. So yes, if you're communicating and you've got relationships, you've got alignment, and then you've got credibility, so which is all splendid. So let's have a look at what happens if you don't have good positioning. So what I've got here is a map, which is which I've created. So we've got the company versus, you know, the team, and empowering versus enriching. And I think it'll become apparent in a minute what I'm really talking about. So the first is, if you have poor positioning, you tend to have lower status in the organization. And of course, that has implications for everything. Anything with low status, you're last to hear about things, you don't have the budgets, you're not giving the opportunities, you know, your whole output and experience at work is restricted. It, you know, it all goes, you'll find it, things either go all the way up or they go all the way down anyway. So if you are also if you have poor positioning, you'll have lower level involvement in strategic decision making. And, you know, people, not everybody, but people tend to like to be involved in decision making, to know and to be present while they're making a difference, and to be able to see how a company can benefit from what they're doing and what they're thinking, and to be able to stretch themselves out of perhaps their pure area of expertise. If you are poorly positioned, then also your team is going to stagnate. And we all know, if you're running a team, you know this to be true, that, you know, once things start to go poorly, then you're really good people, you know, they jump ship. They don't have to be hanging around. They can go and work for the best possible people. And then the quality of your offer just basically is diluted until it's not as useful and not as valuable to the business, you know, and it's demotivating and all sorts of things. There's also a lack of control over your team's work. if you have poor positioning, because others will just tell you what they want and what they don't want, and they'll let you in when they want to, and then they'll shut you out. So if you want to have some control over your team's work, what it does, how it achieves, where your future is and where your reputation is going to go, then obviously positioning is huge. Cool. So this risks being irrelevant and risks having a lack of authority. So some bad stuff that happens if you're poorly positioned. Obviously, the benefits are great. You've got recognition and status within the organization, and you can imagine all the benefits that come from that. You get involved in strategic decision making, you get personal and professional growth for individuals, so everybody wants to hang around for that. And you get autonomy over your team's work, so you can decide how you can best make a difference, which will allow you to make your best difference. And of course, that's very rewarding to the business and for you and for the team, of course. So let's have a look at a difference. If you're positioned weakly, you get boring work versus challenging work. You get stagnating team versus a motivated team. You'll work as others want to rather than having greater autonomy. You'll be taken for granted rather than acknowledged and rewarded. You'll be taken advantage of rather than have clear boundaries. Budgets will decline. Staff will churn rather than being wonderfully motivated and staying with you. So really, when you look at what a strong position can do for you, it's quite considerable and worth thinking of. And I understand that most of the time people don't really do this at all, which is a shame because it can do all sorts of things for you, as you can see here. And also, without that, it might be one of the reasons why if you are experiencing any blocks to come up to that higher level, it could very well possibly be within positioning. If you see any of these things happening to you, that could be because a weak positioning is causing it. So what's the positioning anyway when you use it for a department? I mean, it's sorry, something that's gone a bit weird. All right, I'll get them back in. Hang on. Right. All right, so let's have a look about what is the positioning. It's what people respond to you as being. Now, it's not something you think or say. It's something that's more commonly, no, I'm going to sneeze in a minute, but don't worry, I'm perfectly well. I'm just going to do a hay fever in this autumn. So, oh, good. What people respond to you as being, it's not something you think, it's something or say you are, it's something that you actually are. It's what people respond to you as being. And whatever people respond to you as being, that's really is what your positioning is. Something you do and something you consistently are, not just something you say you are. So, visions and missions and all those sorts of things are all very well in context, but this is really about doing something. And being seen to be doing it and people responding to you as doing it. A way for people to classify you so it makes you easier to work with. So if you can show them how to work best with you, how can they get the most value out of you, this is a good way to be. It differentiates you from other departments, and it gives you something that you uniquely, ideally do best. And it's the utmost service that you can be to the business, the absolute utmost service. And it's to a defined market, so it means, to whom, to the business, to the stakeholders or whatever. So if we have a little bit of a think about it, if you think about it, we need to articulate it as a statement of the compelling role that you play in the lives of whoever your target is. Your target might well be the board or the business or stakeholders or whatever. We think about Gillette, right? So we've got Gillette, the best a man can get or the best a man can be. The positioning might be that they provide grooming products which provide the ultimate in male confidence. But the reason that they exist might be to optimize male confidence across the world. Can you see how that is like a funnel? And actually it works from the bottom to the top when you create it. and the purpose, why we exist, being the most important thing. And can you see that that's far more than providing shaving products? It's about something bigger than that. Look, I've made this up, but I would be surprised if it was very far off. I have spent some time in the marketing world, so I think it's probably fairly close, or could be anyway. So this is about taking it beyond what you actually do. Let me give you an example here about what happens if your stakeholders are clear or not clear about this, or your team is clear or not clear about this. I mean, do you think you could sit down with your team and everybody would already know what your bigger purpose really was within the organization? Would you all agree? Would some of you draw it smaller, some of it bigger? Well, you can imagine you're working on you think you're working on a ferry, but actually you're working on a cruise ship. Let's forget all the connotations about the virus and cruise ships for the minute. Just think about a cruise ship. You know, so you think you've gone to work and you're working on a ferry and you think you're just going to be putting, I don't know, helping cars drive on and off and stuff like that. But come the evening, someone gives you a sparkly jacket and tells you to get on the stage. You know, this is going to be a surprise, and you may well not have been trained for it. You may not be up for it at all. And it's good, you know, it's no good. And also, if basically you think you're a cruise ship, but your stakeholders think you're a ferry, that might be why no one is turning up when you're performing in the evening, you know, or whatever it happens to be. You can see the analogy. You know, are you a ferry? Are you a cruise ship? You want to be a cruise, whichever you want to be, whatever you want to be. It needs to be really clear to your stakeholders what you are and what you will deliver and how to engage with you in that way. So it's about why you're doing what you're doing. I'll put all these up actually. So, for example, in law, it might be what you're doing might be reviewing and refining business decisions to ensure they comply with the law. But why you're doing it might be, and I have no idea, it might be to harness the law to open up business opportunity. You know, if you're in a consumer insights department, it might be, well, to provide consumer insights to the business, but it might actually be to plant the consumer at the heart of business decision making. It might be why you're doing it. If you're, you know, I think there's a bit of a mixture, isn't it? This is about providing risk assessment of the business, but this is actually about marketing. That line's wrong. But basically, you know, if you're in marketing, it might just be to drive. You might think that you're doing there to provide campaigns, etc. But actually, you're there to drive incremental customer value by optimizing the brand and experience. So, you know, it's about taking that bigger step. And you go, why on earth would I want to do that? Well, the answer is because then when you think about that as your core purpose, you think about the sorts of things you could do and the way that you need to be interacting with the business. And there will be a change when you refocus on purpose. And what it will do is allow you to act bigger, allow you to act wider, with authority and with justification for the business. This is a model by Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek is an ex-marketer, and he talks about how brands need to position themselves starting with why. He says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Well, you can take a lot of that learning and actually turn it quite usefully in what to do with a team or a function within a business. If you start with why rather than what, you will get a clearer, strangely more focused, but also larger dimensioned area. So it's more focused, but it gives you more room to maneuver and gives you more ideas as to how to operate. So first of all, you start with why. Then you go, okay, so if we were doing this, if the reason we all existed was this, how would we operate? So you think about, okay, who would we interact with? How would we communicate? And then you would move on to what we do. So this is kind of how you get to the purpose and what you do with it. So there's also levels of purpose here, from uncertain up to driving force. You can look at this yourself, but it's from having it at the center of what you do right down to not really clear why you exist at all. Definitely, pretty much, surely all departments have an idea of what they do. So hopefully we're not right down at the bottom. But because of changing times and because of the evolution of legal, with in-house legal, not least because a lot of the lower level tasks are being carried out by technology or being taken offshore. That means that that role is actually changing. And if your industry and your company is changing too, that means it is changing again. So it's really worth having a look at what that really is. What could it be at the highest levels that's relevant? Could you get up to being, and then when you've got it, could you use it as a driving force? Could you hire against it? Could you reward on the purpose? The business that I built in London, we were rewarded by the government with an accreditation. It's called, what's it called? Investment in people, but it wasn't really investing in people. It wasn't really about investing in people. It was actually about getting people aligned to the company's purpose, is what it was. And it's incredibly useful because then everybody knows what it is that they're supposed to be doing above and beyond the task. It's why they're doing it, what would be a good extension or not. It allows people to have more ideas, but still stay on track. So it's a great way of doing, if you like, freedom and control as well, and also ensuring that everybody knows what's within their remit and what is not. So it stops those, what the Brits would call jobs worth. So basically they don't like to change. They only do what's literally written down for them to do, because now we're talking about actually your actual purpose is this, and therefore if you see a way in which you could deliver that better, that's what you're supposed to do. You can reward against it, you can identify behaviors against it. So it's a fabulous thing to do from a management point of view. So I'd like to talk to you about the power of verbs. When you're writing this, because you've got to express it somehow. I know you don't have to show it to anybody outside the team, but you need to know in yourself what you're about. The first thing to say is that the verbs are incredibly powerful, and that is what will make that purpose for you just ring out and keep in people's minds and give it vibrancy, which is important, so that it can live and thrive in your department and do some proper driving. So I just said to you, the man entered the room quickly versus the man tore into the room, rushed into the room, bounced into the room. Think about the verbs. So are you assisting? Are you driving? Are you I don't know, innovating or whatever it happens to be? But think about a word and try and give it as much power and make it as interesting a verb as you can. So as soon as you start falling into it just sounds like a business sentence and it doesn't inspire you, does it inspire you? I mean, you personally, does it inspire you? It might be a correct description, but does it inspire you? Doesn't inspire you, if it doesn't bring you joy, then find a better way to express it. Use active, not passive tense, because this is something you're doing, not something that's happening to you. Make it solution, not problem based. So instead of preventing problems, what solution can you find for people? Can you make it a positive you're doing rather than a prevention of a negative? Can you make it outcome, not process based? So instead of doing something, which is very much it's about what is actually happening at the end. And as I said, inspiring, not boring. Simple words, not jargon. Strip the jargon away. It just weakens everything. It silos you and it weakens everything. And it stops it being, for everybody, it stops it being, a property of humankind. You want single-minded, not complex. And I'd encourage you to be heroes when you write it. So these are some verbs and some things you can do. They're not all appropriate at all, but these are some words that will help you add brilliance to your purpose when you write it. Next stage is, how do you deliver against a purpose? It's all very well writing it on a wall. We all know we've had all these things written on walls and it doesn't mean anything. And that's a bit like, you've got this purpose on the wall, but do you really believe that she's a doctor? Of course you don't. And you may have this on the wall, but it doesn't mean that it's true. So delivering a strong positioning is really about, what you're doing. So what you say you are, what you do, what you don't do, very important. I'm going to go into that in a second, and how you do it. So here's an example. How do you know she's, a management consultant and not a, I mean, she could quite easily be a truck driver. Of course, she could be anything at all. But we think about what are the cues, and I'm not talking about are you dressing right. I'm just saying this is a metaphor for all of your work and all of your interactions, that you basically stay on brand. And that if you say that's what your purpose is and that's what your position in the company is, then that's how you have to communicate all the time. So it's something you do. Work on the processes that you deliver, the standards, and any outputs that are delivered to ensure that they're consistent against that purpose. So when you look at it, you would go, oh yes, that person's definitely in that role, is definitely a strategic advisor. I can tell by looking at this. Or the team is clearly in the strategic advice business from a legal perspective, and this is how I know, by looking at everything that you delivered. If you don't deliver everything according to that, then and that might be stylistically, it could be in terms of the context that you put quite simple tasks and you always put in that it's around the fact that this is going to deliver this to the business. So you've always got a business focus. If you don't do that, you can't expect people to see you as that. So being consistently something is what gives us credibility. I mean, if somebody you know says they are, I don't know, they're a runner, they like, you know, that they consider themselves only a marathon runner, but they only, you know, as far as you're aware, when you're on holiday with them, they never do any running. You think, oh, I don't know, that doesn't really ring true. And you don't tend to then think about them as a marathon runner. So it's how you behave. We need to deliver training and coaching for any new or evolved skills, because this is the step up, what we're talking about now. And we should not expect that people were able to do it. I was working in a research company once, and our boss was, this is very, very early days for me. I'm like 27 or something. And our boss said, oh no, we're not going to be this. We're going to be marketing consultants. Within about 2 months, everybody had left because she didn't provide any training on how we were going to become marketing consultants. She was just going to talk about us as if we were marketing consultants. And we were absolutely petrified because we were not going to be able to deliver against the expectations she was setting out. So don't forget to support your team and not assume that everybody knows what you know. It's very easy to think that. Work on sharing it and its implications with stakeholders. You know, we are moving up now, we're putting all our effort into this, we realize that's what the business needs, and this is how I'm taking the team from where they have been to where they are now so that they can feel confident. You should expect to see us doing more of this. We were wanting to be engaged in this way, to tell people how to behave with you. They haven't got you in their heads. They won't know. They won't be thinking, I wonder how I should be working with X and Y. Unless you sort of, you know, pull on their coattails, say, excuse me, we are changing what we're doing, or we're evolving what we're doing. They're not necessarily going to think about it. So what we need to do in terms of working together and what you actually do, you need to think of it objectively. So this is what I do in my sessions. And you shouldn't expect this takes half an hour. This takes a while. You know, you're talking about something substantial that the business needs to now really reflect differently on you and think of you differently. So what you need to do is, when you've got a purpose or positioning and you're happy with it, that's the first thing to do, is to basically write it on, put it on a wall, and get the team. This is kind of a workshop exercise. Then you'd go, okay, let's forget that this is about us. Let's imagine we go into a company and we see a legal department whose purpose is this, and you know, you all read it. What would you expect it to do, and what would you expect it not to do? And how would you expect it to operate? And how would you not expect it to operate? What do you imagine we're going into this company and this statement is above the door and people are actually delivering against this? What would they be doing when you walked in? And how would that be different from us? What you find with doing that exercise, if you do it as what do we need to be doing straight away, a lot of people will resist it from a change perspective, and they'll say, I don't want to change what I'm doing, or you're just trying to give me more to do, or that will make my job more difficult, or that will take more time. And the answer is yes, a lot of those things, as you move, as you know, easier tasks take less time. But what you also need to be thinking about is what you will do less of and how you will deal with that work that you need to do less of. Are you going to offshore it? Are you going to put it through technology? Are you going to find faster processes? Are you going to find cheaper people? What are you going to do with that? Because otherwise you can't start up because you haven't got enough time. So important. And there you go. There's the idea of a black dog being something that you can't see because it's about the negative. So this is about what you're not going to be doing. But you can't obviously just drop it. But unless you manage that, you can't take on anything else. So thinking it will just do more X, lovely idea, not going to happen. Oops. That one. So how to make your positioning stronger, make it higher order. Think about the benefits to the business as a whole. Be single-minded. Don't be vague in your statements of intent. Don't be politically correct, and basically, I don't mean politically correct, but I mean don't say, okay, let's everybody throw some ideas in and we'll just add them all together in a big sentence. Be single-minded. If you find yourself wanting to do things, which is the higher order, which is the most powerful, only have one. And be directed by power. This is supposed to be inspirational. It's supposed to be powerful. So take away anything that turns it into jargon or generalized language. Keep it nice and simple and make it directive so that when people see it, they should know automatically, we probably shouldn't be doing so much of this. We probably should be doing more of that. Or we should be doing it in this way, not that way. Let's go back. This is one of the things that I will send you. That's right. Hang on a second. It's one of the things I will send you. So within the pack, you'll get the recording of this if it's recorded well. You'll get this deck, but just separately, so you don't have to separate it. You'll also get this. This is what you can do with your team. You can score them on purpose, in terms of why. How is it impacting things? Is it driving what we do? Does it drive how we do it? Does it drive recruitment? So basically, how are you doing on that? And you can give yourself a score and you can work on it. With each of this, it encourages you to say, well, okay, with that score, how's it impacting my goals? What's happening? The fact that I've only got a 2 out of 4 for that. And if I had a 4 out of 4, what would I be able to do? If you're trying to encourage change with anybody in your department, particularly those who might be a little more resistant, my experience is that people don't make change for the benefit of others. They only make change for the benefits of them. So going through an exercise of, okay, if we were to move to a more senior board advisory function, what would be the benefits to you and what would be the disadvantage to you personally? Unless we know what the negatives are, we can't handle them. And then you have to deal with, obviously you have to play up the stronger parts, but dealing with those negatives, those fears, the idea that they'll be overrun with work, I mean, they're real fears and they're going to stop it happening. So it needs to be addressed. So this is just finally an indication of what my business is doing. So see whether or not you are happy with it. There you go. Sorry, wrong order. I'll just put it all up. Hang on. There you go. All right. So my work is, if you like, about oiling the wheels of business through collaboration, influence, and communication. The core of what I'm focusing on, for at least 6 months, maybe a year, is from lawyers to leaders. I've recently done a training course with the ACC, provided that for them. That was about leading in terms of team leadership skills rather than being leaders within the business. So a little bit different there. But yeah, so what I've got here is in terms of being a leader within the business and being a leader function within the business is I've got training and coaching on delivering solutions, positioning for progress, communicating through cut through communication, and also relationship development. I'm delivering all of these online now, so they've all been amended, so we can do them online with teams. I delivered my first online training with a bunch of 10 people yesterday online. It worked really well. All of the activities, all of the discussion worked extremely well. So yeah, don't be afraid of that. You don't have to stop, you can move on, even if you might like a break for a month or so. But actually, this is going to carry on for a while. We just have to find different ways to act. So I can do that in terms of training, speaking, coaching, mentoring, anything really. So that's where I'm focused at the moment. And pretty much I think that's probably it, apart from to say what your free resources are. So these are coming to you. Thank you very much for coming. Again, sorry, I've got a problem with my internet, which is, as you can see, meaning that I just wanted to show you what to expect. So we will show you, we will send you these things in the next day or so. Now it looks like I'm going to show you nothing. It's really not at all true. There you go. Still doing it, isn't it? Okay, well, look, I can tell you what it is. It's a copy of this recording, a copy of the deck, the ladder, the activity sheet, a white paper, and a link to Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Bearing in mind, of course, he's talking about brands and products, but actually there's a lot of value in what he says for what we're trying to do. Please do send me any comments on how the webinar could be improved. I like feedback, doesn't have to be all positive. Everything helps me, and I'm open to that. And if you want to talk about how I could increase collaboration, influence, communication, etc. in your business, just let me know. You know where to find me. Thank you so much. It's been great to have you along. And if you were making a casserole at the same time, I hope it's gone well. And I shall, no doubt, speak to you all soon. So thank you very much indeed. Goodbye then.